Bright Care Chemist recently updated to a modern self-service layout. Customers can now browse aisles and pick up non-prescription items before bringing them to the register. Walking through the store, a customer named Omar notices a shelf fully stocked with allergy relief capsules. Positioned directly above the capsules is a prominent sign stating, "Allergy Relief Capsules, $14.50 each." Omar reaches out, pulls one box of the allergy capsules off the shelf, and places it directly into his personal shopping basket. But the sign above the shelf is incorrect. The duty supervisor made an error, and the true price of the allergy medication is actually $24.50. When Omar arrives at the checkout counter, the sales assistant, under the supervision of a pharmacist, spots the discrepancy and refuses to sell the capsules for $14.50. Omar pushes back with a specific legal argument. He claims the shelf display and its stated price constituted a binding offer. Furthermore, he argues that the physical act of taking the box and placing it in his basket constituted his formal acceptance of that offer. This local dispute hinges on a critical question of timing and intent. We must determine whether a physical price tag acts as a legally binding guarantee the exact moment a customer removes an item from a shelf. Contract law does not resolve disputes like this by weighing subjective fairness or customer frustration. Instead, it relies on an algorithmic logic system to parse physical reality and assign liability. This matrix represents the IRAC methodology: issue, rule, application, and conclusion. The first step isolates the issue. For Omar, the issue has two exact legal questions. First, did the $14.50 display constitute a binding offer? Second, did Omar legally accept it? To resolve this dual issue, we must temporarily abandon Omar's assumptions about how shopping works and map his physical actions against strict legal definitions. This brings us to the rule phase of our analysis, where we establish the governing common law principles regarding retail transactions. In contract law, a formal offer is defined as a definitive, legally binding promise to be bound on specific terms, leaving absolutely no room for further negotiation. We compare that definitive promise to this opposing concept, an invitation to treat. An invitation to treat is defined as a mere expression of a party's willingness to open negotiations, without any intent to be immediately bound. The established legal rule for self-service retail is unambiguous. Shelf displays, catalogs, and price tags are categorically classified as invitations to treat. They are not offers. We can see the logical fallacy in Omar's assumption by tracing its outcome. If a shelf display were a binding offer, the contract would lock the exact second an item hits the customer's basket. The resulting physical absurdity is clear. Under that logic, a customer who simply changes their mind and puts an item back on the shelf would be committing a formal breach of contract. Classifying shelf displays as invitations is a necessary legal friction. It guarantees that everyday browsing does not become a minefield of immediate, inescapable liabilities. Because the store is only inviting negotiation, the true mechanics of retail contract formation are reversed. The actual legal offer is generated by the customer presenting the goods, not the store displaying them. Consequently, formal acceptance only occurs when the cashier processes the transaction and takes the customer's payment at the register. This sequence is particularly vital given the policy rationale specific to Bright Care Chemist. The state legally mandates that the sale of certain medications must be supervised by a registered pharmacist. This supervision requires the legal rule we just established. If putting an item in a basket instantly formed a locked contract, the pharmacist would have zero legal authority to intervene, ask questions, or stop a hazardous sale. Delaying the point of legal formation to the checkout counter protects the seller's absolute right to control restricted inventory up to the final moment. The physical threshold of agreement structurally occurs at the register. This carefully shifts the balance of power back to the retailer, allowing them to review the customer's offer before accepting payment. We can now move into the application phase of our framework, taking these abstract rules and laying them directly over Omar's physical timeline. This top-down blueprint of Bright Care Chemist shows us exactly how the law views the event. Step 1. Omar approaches the aisle and reads the $14.50 sign. Applying our rule to Step 1, we categorize the $14.50 display purely as an invitation to treat. No promises have been made. Step 2 of the timeline. Omar picks up the allergy capsules and places them into his shopping basket. Applying the rule to step 2 reveals the flaw in his case. Because the shelf was merely an invitation, his act of taking the box has absolutely zero legal significance. Omar holds a subjective belief that an agreement has been struck, but from the perspective of contract law, his actions in the aisle are entirely invisible. Tracking step 3, Omar leaves the aisle and arrives at the supervised front counter to present his chosen goods to the cashier. Under the rule, we identify Omar's presentation of the capsules to the cashier as the formal legal offer to buy. He is proposing to purchase the item at his expected price of $14.50. In step 4, the sales assistant notices the pricing error on the shelf and refuses to process the $14.50 transaction. This refusal functions as a legal rejection of offer. The exact second the assistant declines the price, Omar's proposed terms are killed entirely. When the assistant demands the true price of $24.50, they generate a counteroffer. A counteroffer is a new proposal made in response to a previous offer, carrying its own set of binding terms. The legal ball is now back in Omar's court. He is entirely free to accept or reject the $24.50 counteroffer. His freedom to walk away proves that no binding agreement previously existed. Synthesizing these data points brings us to the final conclusion phase of the framework. The formal verdict is clear. Omar's claim under contract law completely fails. The causal chain is unbreakable. The shelf price was an invitation to treat, so Omar lacked the legal power to accept it in the aisle. He could only make an offer, which the store rejected. Absolutely no contract was formed at $14.50. Bright Care Chemist is entirely within its legal rights to refuse the sale. They are under no obligation to honor the mistaken tag. Strict logical application overrides a customer's intuitive perception. The physical act of holding an item does not bridge the gap between browsing and buying. Zooming out from the pharmacy counter, we see this exact legal framework operating inside every high-volume retail environment in the world. Contract law deliberately delays the threshold of agreement by design. This delay keeps massive streams of commerce flowing smoothly without constant legal friction. This system offers mutual protection. Buyers maintain the liberty to change their minds, compare competing prices, and abandon their baskets entirely without facing penalties. Simultaneously, sellers retain the vital right to control their inventory, intercept restricted goods, and correct human pricing errors up to the final second of checkout. Contract law operates as a meticulously engineered system of thresholds, designed to perfectly balance freedom and obligation in physical spaces.